Hey guys, Tim here with Two Feather Survival. I'm going to talk to you briefly tonight about something that I get a lot of questions on the website, Facebook page, and various outlets, and usually I'll get asked by folks that know that I'm a knife maker, and their one question is always the same. How can I get a great working edge to my knife? Most really don't realize what it takes to get this, and that's what we're going to delve into a little bit more about this evening on Two Feather Survival. Stay with me. Alright guys, well, sharpening stones or ceramic sharpeners, carborundum sharpeners, whatever it is that you have in your bag of tricks, let's say, a lot of people really don't understand what it takes to maintain a good sharp. And what I mean by sharp, I mean knife through the paper, hair popping off the arm, can shave with it type of an edge. What I have here is a whetstone or an oil stone. And a lot of people have things like this, but they really don't understand what it is that they're really trying to do. That's what we're going to delve into a little bit on tonight's episode about these type of sharpening systems. And actually the whetstones, really you don't need them, is what it really boils down to. These are great if I've damaged a blade and I've done something where I've been carving on something and I've gone through let's say a nail that was embedded in wood, anything like that, and now I've damaged a blade. Well, then I can use a very coarse grit whetstone like this, and this one's a 400 on one side and 600 grit on the other side. I can use that stone to polish that nick or the burr or a folded over piece of the knife out and then get back to a working edge. Well, what do I mean by a working edge? It's kind of what most would consider a working edge. I can get into a piece of paper and very easily take and skein off bits of that paper. So that's what most would classify the sharpness of a knife by, is what they would call the paper test. So the paper test is kind of the, if you've searched YouTube for how to sharpen knives before, you'll see a lot of people doing a test like that. The other thing that you might see is they'll take the knife and they'll take the back of their arm and they'll come along and they'll shave off some hair with the knife and show, oh, it's actually at a razor's edge. Well, that's actually what we want with a knife. If I have a edge on a knife that is dull, I've got to work harder to carve sticks, to make feather sticks, whatever it is that I'm trying to do to process game or even wild edibles. And that nature of really bearing down to carve that stick or whatever it is I'm trying to do is usually where you wind up with an accident. So as in the paper test, I've got that very sharp, keenly honed edge on the knife. I have little to no effort in making that knife work for me. That's what I want to have. I want to have a knife's edge that is that sharp. So the question then becomes, how do you get there? What does it take? Does it take the stones to do that? Or should I go out and buy, a really high caliber piece of, or a set of whetstones from Japan? Should I get, the really nice samurai-esque whetstones and learn how to actually get that edge in there? Yes, those are good. Typically they're very, very expensive. So a couple of the different knife sharpening systems that I use are, number one, I do use a very coarse whetstone when I first make knives. What I'm doing with that is taking the edge down on a blade that I've made in the shop, and I'm polishing out all of the various grind marks that I've got off of the belt sanders and even my grindstone. So I don't want to keep those in there. As you start looking at knives and thinking about, well, what does it really take to get that good bevel edge? This is a starting point. So after I've worked that edge out with files and sanding belts and those type of things, and even off of the grindstone, well, then I take a whetstone like this and I start working that edge out. And I've already gotten beyond that process with this, so I'm not actually going to do it. But as what I'm doing is finding the bevel of the blade, making sure I'm matching the bevel of that blade, and I'm drawing that knife, let's say 10 times away from me, reversing that, and then I'm going to draw that knife back 10 times towards me. Then is what I may do is take 2 times off. So now I'm going to draw away from me 8 times and pull back towards me a total of 8 times. Then I'm going to look at the blade and see where I'm at with the condition of the steel. If it needs more work, I'm going to reduce that further, and now I may draw away 6 times and pull towards 6 times. Ultimately is what I'm going to do is then get down to, for a total of 10 times, I'm going to go 1 away, pull 1 towards, 1 away, and pull 1 towards. So is what that will do is that will help work out all of the imperfections that I have on the steel. That will get rid of all of my deep grind marks, get the steel further refined, and it starts to set up the profile of the blade more for me. So after I'm done setting up the profile of the blade where I want it, then I may go into the sandpapers. So that stone, maximum grit, you're running between 6 and 800. I'll get into an 800 wet sandpaper and start working this grit out. And I'm going to work in the direction that I have the cutting edge set up. So if the cutting edge is here, I'm going to work in this direction of the blade. If I wanted a profile different, I would change that pattern with the wet sandpaper. And then since it is wet sandpaper, I want to make sure I've got some water on there. So what I'm actually looking for is to establish a little bit of a slurry on the surface of the blade, and that slurry actually acts as a paste, and that paste really helps get the blade set up even further from there. So wet sandpapers, there's a couple neat things that you can do with that. Wet sandpaper comes in a numerous variety of automotive style grits. You can go 800 on up to 2200 grit, and those are all grits that I work with depending on how keenly polished I want this blade. I'm going to go up to 2200 grit and then utilize that to get a good finished edge on this blade. So the wet sandpapers, that brings us into a lot tighter quality control with the blade, and also with that it gives me some interesting things that I can also do to increase my field kit, so I'm not having to carry a big heavy whetstone with me. Whetstone really is something that we should really ever use probably once with a real heavy grit like that. That's not really what we need to sharpen a knife in the field or maintain a field edge to that blade. They're very heavy. If you carry a small one, you can get the weight reduced some, and that might be something that you always want to have in your bag, but it still is something that really is probably not going to be needed unless you've done something to damage that blade. Then it is something that we'd have to get into. What you can do, this is, fold it on this edge here, just a basic piece of wood, and I have on both sides of this, I have an 800 grit on this side, automotive grade wet sandpaper, and on the other side I've got 2000 grit wet sandpaper. What I've made basically is a whetstone that I can have in my bag. It's made from wood. It weighs nothing. It's very thin, if I show you the profile here on camera. But I've also got a whetstone that is now a biodegradable item that if I take and I've used it up and I've damaged it, or I'm just done using this, this can go off pretty much anywhere and it's not going to take up space in a landfill. So now I've got something that's fairly lightweight and eco-friendly. This is something that you can make and put in your backpack and carry with you, and this is going to be one of the best ways to manage a knife in the field. This is perfect for that. So this is something that I've added into my kit, and it's very easily made, and it is something that I can actually make various grits of based on what type of sanding paper that I place on this. And as all I did, like I said, is a block of wood. I've gotten some spray glue, sprayed down the block of wood, cut the sandpaper down to size, and I press that on and just smooth it out real good with a small roller that I had out in the shop. Easy way to do it, very lightweight, doesn't take up much space, so I don't even realize that it's there in the backpack. Once it's there, it just slides right down in and very easily done. Great thing to make, and great thing to have not only for the shop, but also as a field tool for you. All right, something else that you can get, and I actually got this off of a trade with a great fella. Traded him one of my small bushcraft buddy knives for this kit, and is what this is. This is the Lansky knife sharpening system, and within this kit, it's got a couple things. I've got sharpening oil, and I've got right now 3 set of stones in here. I've got a coarse stone, a medium stone, and a very fine stone, and then I've got a small wet stone that's very fine grit. And the other thing that I keep in here is just a ceramic rod, and this helps to maintain the edge on scallop style knives. Good thing with this system, via the channel lock here, I can get it out of the box. This now actually has a way where I can hold the blade in a fixed position, and via the rods that come with it and the stones, turn this around so you get a better view of this, I can set this at known angles. So the top one here is a 30-degree bevel. Then I move down to a 25-degree bevel, or I could be at a 20-degree bevel, or all the way down to a 17-degree bevel. Now, what this does is it gives me a very precise and a very known angle that I can then have a blade set at. Kitchen knives are typically 17 degrees, sometimes 10 degrees. They got a very shallow bevel. Bushcrafting knives typically are up around 25 or even 30 degrees on the bevel, because a lot of times various customers want to use this knife also in a batoning type of a situation. So again, this is a Lansky kit, and they're not very much money. They're $40 to $50, but it's a great tool to add to a collection. The bad thing with all of this is it's all going to come down to really one thing. Keep in mind, everything that I'm showing you is something that I'm doing at the knife making level, and not so much at a field maintenance or an end user level. Really, there's one item and one item alone that you can get, and you can make it even with things you probably got laying around your home, as a end user of a knife, and I'll show you that here next. Okay, here it comes. The multi-million-dollar piece of equipment. The creme de la creme. The thing that escapes 90% of the people out there that want a keen edge, that razor sharp edge on their knives. I'm going to show you it, but you got to promise not to tell, because I've spent a whole bunch of money in researching this product, and they are not cheap to get. So this is something that nobody ever shows you that secret. So what I have here is, kidding, it's a 2x4. Interesting. Well, what the important factor is with the 2x4 is I've got maybe $2 worth of leather here on the top, which makes this now a leather strop. This is the secret to all keen edges on knives. That ability to slice that paper like I did a few minutes ago came right from this. I already had an edge on that blade. I just needed to maintain it. Now, a piece of leather strapped to a 2x4 is not something that is backpack friendly. What is something that is backpack friendly? Well, forget about the backpack altogether. Just go out and get yourself a good high quality leather belt and use the inside of that belt. What I've seen some folks do is they'll add a length of paracord in where they can tie that off to a tree, and now you've got the old barbershop style strop, and it's something that everybody's carrying on their waist already. Okay, a couple things that you're going to want to kind of keep in mind with this. Number one, just leather alone will do the trick. That's the first thing to keep in mind. If you have a suede edge and a finished edge, it really doesn't matter what side that you want to use. What could you also add in? Well, you go down to Lowe's or Home Depot, get yourself some buffing wheel paste, and get the green high polish kind. Take a little bit of that, rub that across your leather strop, and then you've got something even better to work with. So with this, just like, get that in camera there for you a little bit. With this, just like the stone, I want to make 10 passes away. You don't need to bear down hard on this. I want to just find that beveled edge and get that worked out. And then I'm going to do, turning the blade over, 10 pulls back towards me. Okay? From there, I can then step down to maybe 5 presses away, 5 pulls towards. So is what you wind up with is 2 things. I'm going to get an edge on the blade, get that up there in the camera view for you a bit better, that winds up being extremely well polished. That's the key to a good sharp knife. There's no nicks. I've moved all of the metallurgy structure back towards one direction, which is going to give a very keen cutting edge. The piece of leather, that can be anywhere. It could be something that you throw in your backpack, put it down on any flat surface, put it down on a picnic table if you're camping someplace, or like I said, some guys are taking and making it like the old barber shop strop and putting it on a tree and using the inside of their belt and they're stropping with that. The paste really isn't that big of a deal if you're going to do that, but is what I want to do is make sure that I'm doing the same number of pulls away as I am pulling towards me. At the end of that, I can then make this one away and one towards type of a motion, and that will also give me a real keen edge to the blade. And this is what we're looking for. We get that real keen, razor sharp edge to this blade. So if this was a feather stick that I was looking to make, I've got that all day long now when I get a knife out to a good sharp edge like that. So the other thing that you can do with a leather strop like that, now this is actually a coated blade, but if it was an uncoated high carbon blade, I can actually then get this polished edge over the entire blade surface instead of just the edge of the blade. And is what that will do is help to protect the metal, give the oil more of a surface to kind of get down in and not have the water be able to get down into the microscopic levels of the blade, which are all good things that you're looking to do. Put this one away. And kind of what I'm talking there is a knife that is actually at a mirror's finish, kind of like this one. This one isn't quite finished. This is one of the Nesmics. But gives you an idea of that type of finish that you can establish onto the blade. Well guys, I hope that you've learned something today. I just wanted to make this a quick video and show you some of the things that you can do with various knife sharpening systems. They all do have their place, but the thing is this, once you've purchased a good quality knife from a good knife manufacturer, it's already been technically sharpened. So I'm sure you've heard the adage, you only are ever going to sharpen a knife once, but you're going to forever hone the knife. That bit of leather is what that will give you the ability to do, to hone the knife and maintain that edge. Every night when you break down camp and you're getting ready to turn in, that should be your last 20 minutes of your daily chores for that day at camp. I want to take the knife, make sure I've got a good working edge on the blade, hone it out, put a coat of oil on it, especially if we've been processing game, wild edibles, anything like that that's got a high water content to it. And now I take that knife and then it goes back into the sheath because I'm never going to leave a knife out on its own. So that's the purpose of that bit of leather, is to make that job better for you and make the knife be a better instrument for you for whatever task it is that you're trying to do. Guys, I hope you've learned something this evening. I wanted to just take a few moments just to talk about these different knife sharpening systems and some of the things that you can do with them. It's really nothing fancy. That bit of leather is just some that I've had sitting around in the shop here, left over from some of the various sheaths and survival kit pouches that I've put together. So you can get that anywhere. It could be an old junky belt even, for that matter. And the 2x4 again was nothing fancy as well, so it's just something that I had laying around the garage. You can also reduce that a little bit and make it more of a pack-friendly thing. In fact, the bit of wood with the sanding paper on it, I could set that up just exactly like that in the same size, but I could put two different types of leather on there, and I've got another way that I can pack that into the woods with me. I hope you've enjoyed today's video, gang. Again, I appreciate everything that you guys do for me and for my family, for the business. Till next time, I look forward to seeing you then, and hopefully we won't have rain like we had today. So I'll leave you with a little clip of that here in a second. Thank you. I appreciate all your views. Remember to click like, and also remember to click the subscribe button. I do appreciate all of that. It helps me out with what I'm trying to ultimately do with the YouTube channel.